Mayor Fraser, thank you so much for joining us at AUVSI Orlando this year. We're so glad to have you joining us all the way from Purcellville, Virginia.
Well, thank you, Brownville, and also thank you, MITRE, for having me. This is a pleasure to be out there. A lot to take in.
Absolutely.
Yes.
There is a lot. There's just so many things happening at the same time, so much new information, so much new technology. And so that leads me to my first question for you, which is, how did you wind up in Purcellville and as mayor of the town?
Okay, so this goes back to Guyana, South America. I migrated to the United States when I was 11. So the first 11 years of my life was spent in Guyana, South America. It's north of Brazil, east of Venezuela. And I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, went to school on Long Island, and after school, I took a job at AT&T, launching a wireless long-distance network. Following AT&T, I took a job at Sprint Nextel, and that's what brought me to Northern Virginia in the small town of Purcellville.
Wow. Okay, that's definitely an interesting journey.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that you've got going on there is a whole focus on smart city and smart tech. Who are your end users? Obviously the citizens and more, but what are their needs? How did this come to be?
Okay, so it comes from our comprehensive plan, the vision of the people for the community. So my end users are our citizens, and they made it loud and clear to us that they do not want high density residential growth in the town of Purcellville. So the question is, how would you be able to obtain revenue without taxes? And that's when we invite this spirit of innovation. How do we innovate to lower the operational costs of doing business and also to drive revenue? And one way we found this out was monetization of our assets. So we took one of our old maintenance facility and converted it into a maker space. And in so doing, we invite research and development in technology that will be used to advance drone automation and different applications.
Wow, that is great out of the box thinking, and you're not seeing that everywhere. You're also in airspace. Did you tell me?
Yeah. One thing that's attractive about Purcellville, one of our key assets is that we're in Class G airspace, so there are no restriction from the FAA on that, and that invites demonstration, prototyping, and so on.
Wow, that's you're lucky.
So we are even able to monetize our airspace.
That's rare. That's a lucky find. So when you think about the value proposition for the municipality, for the city, what is that value proposition and how is it being implemented?
Okay, so I see that threefold. One value is, how do we do policing going forward, right? Can we integrate drone into our police operations? Second, can we incorporate drone also into our day-to-day operations? If we want to inspect a rooftop, do we need to have a drone just go and look at the rooftop and bring back the intelligence, right? Mm-hmm. And the third part is, how do we make our community a repository for information? Meaning a lot of data is in the town of Purcellville. Case in point, during the COVID pandemic, we were able to test our water to see traces of COVID within the water wastewater treatment system. So how can we use drone to make that kind of testing easier and more efficient? So those are the three parts. Public safety, how can we incorporate drones to make it easier for our police officers to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of our citizens? Second, our operations, our day-to-day operations, how do we incorporate drones to make that more efficient? And then the third, of course, is this wastewater treatment facility. How do we test and research?
Right. Wow.
Makes sense?
It does make sense. And there are a lot of resources that have to come to play. How are you organizing those resources, financial and otherwise?
Okay. So financial, we have a saying, the vision comes before the provision. I tell folks to focus on the vision, make the vision clear,
Right.
and you'll find ways to finance it.
Right.
So what we have done with that is we're able to seek state funding or federal funding after we have laid out the vision. Case in point, we have our CIP budget that we've been telling the people about for the last 10 years. We were blessed to receive $10.5 million from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan Act.
Right.
And we then take that money to finance our operations. One of those operations is making sure that our infrastructure is made for the future. So we're inviting ways to do broadband connectivity within our town. And we're seeking money to see how we could make sure that we have fiber optics connections throughout the town of Purcellville.
Wow, and so are you seeing, school kids all the way up to the police chief engaged?
Yeah, we're seeing the entire community engage on this because during COVID, we found out the value of connecting to the internet reliably, accessibly, and with high availability. And now that the town of Purcellville is looking at this grand strategy to make sure broadband is brought to every home, it's embraced by everyone.
I mean, for all the right reasons. So that I asked that question because, with smart cities and innovation, it's always about the long-term sustainable track. Like, how do you see this continuing to live? How are you measuring this from a sustainable perspective?
Yeah, and a great question. So we want citizens in Purcellville to see this as a community that balances the old with the new. Our vision is Purcellville, your hometown, where history intersects with progress and the people prosper. So as people see their value, the property values goes up and their lifestyle is worth living, and there's recreational asset and so forth, that's a value proposition that is sustainable, and they'll see this as a community that's cherished in America.
So, my last question is, and I ask everybody this question: what is your vision for the future? What would you like Purcellville to look like in 15 years? What would as you think about the evolution of what you're building?
Okay, so what I don't want it to look like, I'll start there, right? I don't want it to look like a cookie cutter community everywhere USA. I want it to still have its charm and character that people visit on a daily basis or even on weekends for, right? And I also want it not to be your typical place with a lot of traffic, right? So we should not have to wait hours to get from one end of Purcellville to the next end of Purcellville. So we want to have no congestion. We still want to have the charm and character of Purcellville, and we want it to be this gateway community to the wineries of Northern Virginia.
Wow. So you see this as this innovation destination that will continue to grow and revolve, specifically around drones and probably other tech, I'm assuming, and but still remain its charm as a smaller city without having to change the character of the city.
Exactly, and again, it's going back to embracing that innovation, because we talk about autonomous vehicles. Autonomous vehicles cannot be possible without low or zero latency. And low or zero latency on a 5G network, you need fiber in the ground. That's why we have invited fiber optic providers to come into the town of Purcellville, lay their fiber, although they are connecting all of our schools. Those fiber are in the ground to support the future 5G that would drive the drone economy and also the autonomous vehicle economy. And so we'll see all of these things, right? And then we'll invite businesses to establish in the town of Purcellville, and we'll get revenue from those businesses. We don't have to build.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, thank you so much. Well, Mayor Fraser, these have been your 6 questions. thank you so much for joining us on ZeoCast. We look forward to watching your progress and having you back.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.